Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. And there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Malby Styles, Troy Shuker, Bose Nail, Joseph Pizarro, Samson, Maris, Mobile Mac 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open-Minded, Reese Pound, Dal West Watson, Mike, Muted, Dick Earth Skeptic, NA Literalist, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Rob H, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Fireball X, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, Kirsten Smith, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I'm going to hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their conversation while I set up for today's live show.
Yo, yo.
Hello. How's it going?
To be honest, I mean, everyone's going to be thinking that I'm all upset and stuff, but not really, because, like, yeah, I'm a little bit gutted that these people report every video, but ultimately it's like they've got to, haven't they? They've got to try and stop people pointing out that gravity's not a force. So I really see it as a victory. I don't see it as a loss. I see it as an inconvenience. I don't see it as a loss, though. It represents the fact that they can't have people that dissent against the currently position in science. They need that religion to be, like, unchallenged. It's not going to change anything for me.
Fair enough. Can you hear me in Discord?
Yes.
Give it a much. Good to hear you.
Morning.
Morning. Is that Steve?
How you doing, Nathan?
Very well. How are you?
Good. Thank you. How's you?
Don't know if you're breaking up, Steve. I think your line's breaking up. Maybe you want to drop and rejoin, but you're breaking up. Done. I'll have to take him off mute when he gets back in. There we go.
Yeah, I just said hi. How's your ear doing?
It's all right. Not great. Not painful, though. Or painful to the degree I can cope with.
Hello, hello. Coming in.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
What did
Can
you
you
do
hear us?
wrong that your channel's taken down? What happened?
Basically, my latest upload was I get people like Brenda report every video that I make, and they said the report was that it was encouraging violence. Well, I don't agree, but Spurs said it's because of the use of the word bomb. And I said the use of the word bomb doesn't promote violence because, like, you can drop the F-bomb on live TV and that doesn't promote violence. And he said, yeah, but it's one of those words. And I'm like, it's not really, though, is it? But Spurs said, well, maybe it is. And I'm like, well, okay, well, maybe it is one of those words. It still doesn't promote violence just because I might have used the word bomb.
Describe the video because I didn't see it. What was it about?
It was 50 seconds, and it was about 3 university kids in a bedroom in university, and one of them's rigged up his bed to blow up with airbags. So he presses a button, it blows airbags up underneath his bed, and basically flings him about 2 feet in the air. It was more about the shock value than the actual injury or risk of injury, but it was perceived by somebody that wanted to be a lefty that was promoting extreme violence, and YouTube reacted. Now, I get that all the time, and I report and I respond to it. And every single time, apart from protesting or COVID-related stuff, it was always rescinded. But obviously, the COVID protesting stuff is something that I'm genuinely interested as well. And I did get 2 community strikes for stuff related to COVID. and this was just basically the opportunity that they throw enough mud and eventually some of it will stick. But it doesn't really matter. I can put everything back up. It's just a case of re-upping everything. I didn't make any money from my account, and it's not really going to change anything. But they'll obviously they'll be sat there with a smirk on their face at the minute. But it's only a short term. It's not going to change anything in the long term. It just means I've got to do a bit more work for a bit.
Well, I'm sorry to hear it.
Yeah, it's not going to change anything though.
Hey, good morning.
It should. You
Hey,
should
hey.
you should get more familiar with the YouTube terms of service, or whatever they call it, community guidelines rather. Just
Well, I don't see there being a violation in it. I've looked at the terms and guidelines, and it doesn't say anything that would cover them in this situation. So that's why I've appealed it. But what they say and what they do doesn't really match, because they just say that it does, even though it doesn't.
No, but I said it does too.
I take your point. I don't
we had the
agree.
conversation this morning.
That's what they say, isn't it? So what can I do? Not a lot.
Well, when we had the conversation this morning, I essentially agreed with you. You kind of brushed it off, but there we go.
Can I take their smirk off their face by doing a pile on the globe once you're done?
Yeah, I'm done, man.
But I just want to make that. Anthony doesn't acknowledge what I've just said, though. He didn't this morning when I was speaking on the phone either.
Say it again. What did I not acknowledge?
You need to get a better grip on the terms of service, which are known as community guidelines on YouTube. And I know you don't want to feel like you've done something wrong. And I could argue all day politically that you haven't. But you have. And a better understanding of the YouTube, I keep forgetting what they're called, community guidelines, would have kept your channel afloat. So as much as you might not want to hear it, and nobody wants to hear this sort of stuff, well, you should have known the rules better. Nobody wants to hear that, and I get it, but it's true.
Well, I saw.
Right. Hang on. Let me respond. So I'll just say the same thing that I said a minute ago. I hear what you say. I don't agree. I don't agree that I've done anything wrong. That is my response. If you say that, we just agree to disagree.
Yeah, and we didn't fall out over it on the phone call either. And I'm not. The only reason I'm reiterating it is because obviously there's an audience and people are listening to this. So I don't want my point to not be stressed, even though we agree to disagree. It's not like we're falling out over this, right? And it's a very upsetting situation you find yourself in. I would be devastated.
Oh, no, my position is not that I'm devastated. Your position might be devastating, but my position is that it's just a channel to me. It's a vehicle to exist on this platform that we basically get penalized and punished and hidden from. It doesn't have the same effect on me that it might have on you. You have an income from it. I've never monetized my channel for good reason, because I knew that eventually it might kick me off. So if it ever did kick me off, I didn't want to lose that perception of money. I was always and I didn't want the bias perceived with it. Oh, you're only here for the money. Well, I'm not only here for the money. So it doesn't matter the point that you're making. And I know what your point is, that I should understand the guidelines better. But I don't agree that I've violated them. I do understand the guidelines. I just don't agree that I've violated them. But if you think that, you can think that. And I know it's supported by YouTube, but their view on it is that I was being aggressive or promoting aggression or violence. I don't agree. But if they say I was, I've just got to accept it. So I do accept it. I set up another channel when I get a chance to, and I carry on as I was before. I don't see the issue.
I was going to say, Anthony showed me the video, and I have to side with Anthony here. It's just a prank video. You see so many of them on YouTube, and for them to use this against him, it's not even his video. And I don't see any violence in it myself. But as Nathan says, the rules have changed. And so from his point, he's right. But from Anthony's point, I agree with Anthony.
Did you ever see some of the videos that kid Logan Paul puts up?
No.
He was getting shot in the back with a paintball gun.
Contextual. It's contextual.
Yeah, the rules have changed.
Contextual. Well, there's a societal group.
So okay, then Nathan.
There's a societal group in a debate, and you have introduced a violent aspect to that. So contextually, that's why I agree with them. Now you don't like that, and you're saying I don't agree, and 10th man siding with you. That's fine also. But contextually, the same video with nothing attached, just a title of what happens, would not get you removed. But when it's, I'm challenging this person's viewpoint and here's some violence, it's going to get you strikes.
I hear what you're saying.
But I wasn't challenging a viewpoint. The context, if you're going to make an issue of context, the context was when a flat earther drops the gravity is not a force bomb, then the effect of it is when they read that on their phone, it's like having the world blown up from underneath them. It devastates their argument. That is the context. Now, if you want to infer violence from that, then you're free to do so. We live in a left-wing society at the minute where you're not allowed to have these extreme views because they can be offended. But that doesn't make it offensive and it doesn't make it aggressive because they perceive it that way. And even if YouTube agree with them, it still doesn't make it that I'm encouraging violence. But if you want to think that, we live in a society where you can think anything that you want, but that doesn't make it objectively true.
Okay.
Well, if we're done, I'd like to do that short present, but the slides are backwards, Nathan. So I have to guide you on the first set and the second set to start from the bottom up, if you could put them in order.
I see.
So the first one should be the brown background with the blue globe and the sun rays coming, and it ends on the first one with the blue globe with the three circles.
Well, then I've not got. I don't know, man. I've got a sun with all sorts of stuff coming out at different angles, like a cartoon.
Okay. Do you see the first set of slides should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 slides. Go to the bottom one.
Okay, and it's I've got the lines coming in. Okay.
Yeah, start from there up, and then when I ask you to go to the second set of slides, you have to scroll down to where the sun is at the bottom with the rays going outwards and then we work up.
Okay, we're going backwards, and then I'm just getting it clear before you start. So we're going backwards initially, starting with this north-south and lines coming from the right. And then after we've got through however many you say, I then move on to the picture that's got the globe and flat earth equivalent with the sun's parallel rays, correct?
No, you go to the bottom and start from the bottom and end with that.
So I'm going to go backwards twice. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me know when and I'll get going.
I'm ready when you are.
All right. So when you presuppose a sphere, then all the angles have to come from the center. All the measurements for angles must come from the center. So if you draw a circle on a piece of paper, like a 2D circle, and you put a dot in the middle, that's the radius. And from there, you could actually bring two straight lines to meet, which will form an angle, corner, which forms an angle is much better said, or a vertex where it meets at a point. But in order for the globe model to work, first you got to presuppose you're on a sphere. Second, all measurements must be from the center. But something else has to happen. All the sun rays must come in parallel, or else it doesn't work. Now, the fact is that the sextant as an instrument for navigation does work, has worked, still works. But it needs two straight lines to work. It needs to form a vertex. But where do we take a reading from a sextant? We take a reading from the sextant from the surface of their presupposed sphere. So if you look at that first picture, you could see they've got the sun rays coming in parallel, which they don't, but they have to have it for their model. And you can see it goes to the center, that A, the one that's marked A. Then you have a person at B point, and that's 22 degrees, but it only works because the sun rays have to come in parallel. And you can have a angle be formed from the center. So we're going to be covering this and show you how the presupposition falls apart. Now the sextant works because we don't live on a sphere with a curved surface, because the sextant cannot ever work on a curved surface. Okay, so the next slide is a picture of a globe on the left, and they're showing the sun rays coming, and the zenith position in this case is at the equator, 90 degrees. Next slide.
All right, the last slide was figure 2A and figure 2B, yeah?
I don't have them labeled. It's just the next slide above that one was the curved Earth. Sun rays hit Earth at angles. I don't know why it came in backwards today.
Okay.
Just start at the bottom and go up on both sets. We'll be
Yeah,
fine.
it doesn't work like that when I've got it presented. I don't have both the chat and the presentation of the picture. I can't look at what's backwards or forwards. I just need to know what picture comes next.
Well, the picture is titled Curved Earth equals Sun rays hit Earth at angles.
Okay, got it.
All right, so you can see here, the angle is formed by the curve on the surface. The angle, it says it right there, sun rays hit Earth at angles. But their sun rays supposed to be coming parallel. But because they say the Earth is a sphere, the angle is caused by the curvature. Now, we know the black swan destroyed the curvature. There is no geometric horizon. And so we don't see curvature. You go on a plane, you go anywhere, you can just never see curvature. But in their model, in their Muppet vision, they got to do this. But if you take it to the center, you're going to get, the next slide will show you what happens with corresponding angles. Are you there on that one?
I don't know which picture you need to tell me which picture it is.
It's corresponding angles, four illustrations of parallel lines with a line going through it. Yeah, we may have to do this again if it's not in order.
You're going to have to give me more detail about what picture you want, because that's not enough detail for me to know what picture you want.
It's not going to happen because I have it in order, but they came in backwards on Master B, and all I could do is just go up from the bottom, but I don't see what you're seeing. So it's the one that shows 4 examples of corresponding angles.
I don't have that picture.
Yeah, it's in Master B, but you don't have it. Yeah, let's just scuttle this. I'll try to get them in order. We'll do it again.
Okay.
Because it's not gonna flow. To be continued.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to do it again because I can't figure it out. I can't figure out which picture.
Yeah, yeah, it was weird. It just came in backwards. I said, how does that happen? It never came in backwards. I'll see if I can fool with it.
Okay.
All right, I'll go on mute.
Fair enough.
Nathan, did you hear about Spurs' bet yesterday with Moss?
Covered it on Ballbusters.
I've not seen it. I'm just trying to understand 2 things. Forget about the argument itself.
Why?
Why would somebody that's... Well, I just want to try and see it from his perspective. Why would somebody on the Ball Earth side think that trees that grew moss only ever on the north side of the tree? Why would he think that that's a Ball Earth argument?
Because he's going to affirm the consequent and assert that it's doing one thing in the northern hemisphere and another in the southern hemisphere, as declared to Spurs, not picked up on, not challenged, not refuted, and then they discussed a bet for about 10 straight minutes.
I know, but you got it wrong there. His claim was that moss grows on the north side in all places of the world. Well, if it's a sphere and you're begging the question the way they do, it would be on the north in the north hemisphere, and it would be on the south in the southern hemisphere. But his actual claim was that it was in the north in all places of the earth. And I thought that doesn't work on the Ball Earth model. What's he arguing that angle for? That's a bad argument for him, but he was adamant it was right. And Spurs is going, well, hang on a sec, explain that again. So he does, and he was adamant it was in the north for everybody. And I thought, this guy doesn't understand his own model. That's not an argument that you would make if you're a Ball Earther and you were begging the question, because you would have to argue that the moss would have to be on the south side in the south. So that got me thinking, like, why does he actually think that? Maybe, just call me crazy for a minute, but is it possible that it is north in the trees in Australia, and it puts Australia in a completely different position on a ball? Because I don't know, I couldn't see what was being presented on screen, but his position was that anywhere on the earth, the moss will always grow on the north side. And I'm like, that's not consistent with a sphere, is it? And I had to double check, and I'm thinking, this guy doesn't get it. So I'm wondering, is there actually a north side of moss growing in Australia completely inconsistent with their model? I think we need to look into that with anybody in Australia.
Why? What you're saying is his example doesn't quite make sense when you affirm the consequent with it. Okay,
Correct.
so what?
Well, let's try and establish what the facts actually are. What side do they actually grow on? Because, like, if it's
Why?
supposed to be on the north side or south side, whichever, let's find out what angle it's actually growing on.
Why?
Because does that then line up to the rotation point in the stars in the night sky? Because I suspect it doesn't, but it should do if you're begging the question. But I don't think it will.
The problem is that it was already defunct as an old wives' tale, and it doesn't actually happen anyway, so it doesn't even matter.
No,
does matter.
the old wives' tale is that the moss grows on the north side everywhere. That's the old wives' tale. But he was arguing that as though it was true. Now, I don't know why he had the old wives' tale in his head, but it might be that the old wives' tale is actually true. It might be that they've said that it's an old wives' tale because it debunks the ball earth, even if you affirm the consequent by assuming that it should be on the south side. What I'm saying is there might be an argument in there that we should look at with an Australian.
Okay. The only angle I see is that it's being utilised, regardless of how ludicrous, to affirm the consequent. Now, you're saying, well, if you affirm the consequent, it doesn't work, therefore could there be an angle that you can point out how it doesn't work if you affirm the consequent? Well, yeah, you love doing that. It just drives me bonkers.
I know.
So let me get this straight. We're talking about moss now, proving the ball earth?
No,
Moss
not
on
exactly.
trees.
That was the argument. Yeah, Moss was supposed to prove the ball earth, but the guy making the presentation that it did that got it the wrong way. He got it completely wrong. But regardless of whether he got it wrong or not, there's still an argument there to look at in the sense of, like, well, it has to be on the south side. So if it is on the south side, which would be the same on both models, does that south side line up with the rotation point in the south? Because if it doesn't line up with the rotation point in the south, then it means that the rotation point has got some elements of sun representation for what is south. Because, like, where is south, and how do you prove it? It relies on begging the question to see whether or not it's consistent. If you beg the question,
right, and that's where the argument ends, doesn't it? But that's where the argument ends. That's what I got frustrated with, because QE's angle was to say, look how far they descend into madness with nonsense claims. Your angle is, well, could the nonsense claims actually work to our advantage? My angle is that nonsense claims being used to affirm the consequent.
What if the moss grows on the east side of the tree and it doesn't support any model, and therefore supports the notion that whatever it is that we're living on doesn't work on both models because it's grown on the wrong side of the tree, regardless of whether it's flat or not?
Both models. What do you mean both models, Anthony?
There he goes. Exactly.
What I mean is, like, you don't have to beg the question with it. You just got to say, right, what side is that?
That's where you're wrong. That's where you're wrong. Yes, you absolutely will require to beg the question to use moss in any way, shape, or form to affirm the consequent. You will. That's wrong. Yes, you will absolutely require to beg the question to make this as an example for a globe, regardless of how ludicrous.
No. What's the naturally occurring phenomena? Moss grows on tree. Why is it doing it? Because the sun's coming in from an angle, causing that to be on the shade side. Okay. So what angle is it coming in from? It's coming in from an angle that's not consistent with either model. So it's like that, therefore, kind of debunks both models.
I don't know, but whatever you're eating sounds good. I'm making me hungry.
I don't need moss.
Sorry, it's just
debunk.
It's a beef and tomato butty.
I don't need moss to debunk a pseudoscience model. It's not required. The only bit that's potentially got my, ears pricked up a little bit is when you say, well, let's have a look at this old wives' tale to see if actually, based on what they claim as a model, is incompatible with the way moss grows. If you want to look into that, that's fine, whatever. But absolutely, they'll need to beg the question and affirm the consequent if they're going to use almost anything to claim that the Earth's a sphere. So this is no different.
That's what I got out of it. Look how the mighty have fallen.
I don't even know who the guy is. Is he something important or something?
It was only important in the sense that 5-10 minutes before he was claiming to be the flat Earth killer, and he was strutting his stuff like a peacock on heat, and then comes out with this Moss argument. And I was just trying to get my head around how he was even formulating it in his head, because like even if you do beg the question on his model, it's still upside down for him. It's essentially the same as like.
Right?
It's essentially the same as Elon Musk saying you can tell it's fake because you can tell it's real because it looks so fake. It was kind of like that. It was like you're arguing the completely opposite position, you Burke.
Do you want to finish your breakfast before we go live? It's bad enough in the British show.
Pardon?
I said, can you finish your breakfast before we go live?
Yeah, I'm done.
Not going live just yet. It's got a couple of minutes.
You're done now. I'm hungry. Anyway, though, isn't that normal for them? Most ballers to not even know their own model.
Yeah. Another example of it yesterday in the after show. Guy came in to challenge the Black Swan, and he didn't understand the argument. And I pointed out that half the time they don't understand their own argument, let alone our argument. And most of the time, arguing against their own argument, arguing that we wouldn't expect to see Earth curve as an example, arguing that we wouldn't expect to see axial rotation as another example, they spend half the time arguing against their own bloody claim. They don't know what their own claim is, but yes, Neil, exactly. And that leads to another problem, doesn't it? Because then you have to educate these idiots in their own claim. What they're actually claiming when they say Earth's turning with Coriolis deviation. You educate them in their own claim, and then they try and debunk your rendition of their claim. Like Simon Dan, well, you and your reference frames are in. What reference frames? I'm detailing your stupid claim that Earth has reference frames to show Coriolis. Well, they're debunked. Oh, well, that's wonderful, Dan. Try and keep up. You complete idiot.
It shows that they don't even know what their own claims are.
Yeah. You wouldn't be telling me my reference frames were ruined if you actually understood what your own argument was. But they don't. They haven't got the vaguest idea what their own claim is, let alone how to debunk it, or what we're claiming. Say a quick hello to Arwin and then we'll go live. Hey, Arwin. Earth to Arwin. Come in, Arwin.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video, there is a link to get £50 back for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Arwin, Neil, Sleeping Warrior, 10th Man, Eli, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome one and all.
Greetings.
Good
Good
afternoon.
morning. I mean,
Hello.
Shout out to Sleeping Warrior channel. Where are you?
Let's deal with that
I'm,
straight
I'm
away.
going to
Tim.
have to pull you up. I'm going to have to pull you up, Nathan. You said that you were joined by Sleeping Warrior. Do you have any evidence that you are supported by or joined by Sleeping Warrior?
Yes, I have the words Sleeping Warrior next to your name as your mic line dances up and down.
Oh, damn. Okay, I'll give you that one.
So Sleeping Warrior's channel was recently removed from YouTube, and hopefully Sleeping Warrior will give you a brief rendition of why, to his knowledge, that has happened. Go ahead, Sleeping Warrior. Then we'll get into housekeeping.
All right, so one of my interesting topics that I focus on or I pay attention to is obviously the lockdown, COVID, protests, civil rights, human rights, freedoms of assembly and expression and all that. And that got me in a little bit of trouble. I got 2 community strikes about 2 months ago. And then I know that I get every video reported by the people that don't like me telling them that gravity is not a force, for instance, or that there's no evidence of this, that, and the other on the shape of the Earth. But because they report every video, eventually something's going to stick. And my latest upload was a video where school kids or university students were goofing around with one guy minding his own business, laying on his bed, playing on his phone, probably texting me some abuse. And one of the kids had rigged up some airbags underneath his bed, and he detonated them from some kind of remote device or whatever, and it blew him about maybe 1.5 feet, 2 feet in the air. I mean, the argument is that it was explosive and it was so dangerous, and that was the reports that I was encouraging violence. And I was trying to show that when you drop the gravity's not a force bomb to a ball earther, it basically blows their argument out of the water, literally, because they don't have anything to explain Newton's apple falling from the tree. But that was twisted by Blurther trolls into, oh my God, you're encouraging violence. And because YouTube are quite left wing, they basically, initially at least, agreed, and they've removed the channel. And I've obviously appealed it on the basis that it wasn't glorifying dangerous acts or violence or whatever. It was making the point that our arguments are that solid that their game is over. But because they can play the left wing like victim card pretty easily, to try and basically it's an overt or it's a covert form of censorship, because they don't like being told that gravity is not a force. So that really shows you how strong the argument is. But obviously they've took the channel in the short term, but thankfully I wasn't a monetized channel. I don't rely on any money from YouTube to do it, so it's not going to really cost me anything. If anything, it just demonstrates how desperate people are to stop me saying things like gravity's not a force, you don't have any measured curvature, gas pressure cannot exist next to a vacuum, and they must do anything possible to mute me. And that was the bit of shit that stuck today. So they took the channel off me, and obviously I'm going through the appeal process. But let's just go with the I'm not getting it back. I'm now looking for a new channel name, so I'm open to suggestions. I'm thinking Gravity is Not a Force might be a great channel name, so send your entries into Nathan Oakley is ace at nathanoakley.com. But yeah, they took it off me because they said that somebody said I was encouraging violence.
wait,
Okay.
but don't they say gravity's not a force?
Well, that's what
Yeah,
we're going to
they
get
do,
into. The reason I've decided to have Anthony prompt the housekeeping with that is because it's on topic. So we'll start with any scientific evidence of gravity, and we'll move through precisely what Anthony has been describing by way of housekeeping. So any scientific evidence of gravity?
No, it's a truth bomb when you drop it. So drop that all the time. There is no evidence for gravity. Gravity is not a force. It's all Einstein stuff. It's all bendy space-time and Earth accelerating upwards and all that good stuff. That's their model that they project dishonestly onto us, saying that we're flat Earth society, not realizing that it's actually their current position in physics today. Sorry.
Wait, truth bombs drop, you say? So isn't that proof of gravity? Go down.
Well, no, the bombs are just more dense than the medium. They go upwards in water, Arwin. Have you not seen the tests? Oh, no, it's been deleted.
Truth bombs?
Yeah, the wrong Arwin. Truth bombs float in water.
Really? I did not
Yeah,
know.
only the lies. Only the lies go down. Truth bombs rise to the top like the cream.
A metaphor in verbalization. However, if you show something actually violent and occurring, it becomes an insight to violence. So we discussed that in the show. We won't get into it
that's
now.
my
Let's not
point.
debate it. Please.
Well, All the truth bombs we're talking about now must be violence, Nathan.
No, not in metaphor there now. I've got a title of a video as a Zarwin that's got truth bomb in it, so no. Anyway, any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics? Why do we ask this question?
Because they're always touted as science to make people like Danny Faulkner seem more credible than what he actually is.
This is being covered by
Neil
Quantum
deGrasse.
Eraser. He's dropped anchor on this subject at the moment on the Quantum Eraser YouTube channel, and it will also be the case that myself and others who are currently on the panel will cover it on Ballbusters. So this Saturday I'll repeat the last one, and the following Saturday we will still be dropping anchor on this subject. Hence I'm dropping anchor on it now.
Can we use a different phrase? Dropping anchor. I can't help but think Little Britain dropping anchor in Pooh Bay.
Stop it, please.
You have to let me know what that is. I don't even know what
Just
that
watch
is.
Little Britain. Just watch Little Britain. It's just crude.
I'll dig you the clip.
Let's not play that here. Right. Feel free
No.
to check out Little Britain. It's very crude humour. Anyway, the reason we're dropping anchor here, regardless of Pooh Bay references from Little Britain, is because they claim science. Now, they is basically everybody, because we've all been brainwashed. And if you've got anything even slightly scientific seeming in your profession, you're, in many instances that I can easily refer to, will be claiming science when you don't have any. It doesn't matter what I use as an example. It could be Aston Martin mixing paint and telling you how it's science. It could be somebody who's flogging speaker cables telling you about how it's science when they measure them. Now, this trick is the same trick that's utilised on us to believe we're on a sphere, and they tell us that they've got science for it. Now, those days are long gone here on Flat Earth Debate. No longer do we hear the cry of, the whole body of science proves we're on a sphere. The body of science has got the R value. The body of science proves we're spinning. We don't have those claims anymore because we understand what science actually is, and moreover, what it isn't. There is no scientific evidence that we're on a sphere. Zero. But it's been punted as such, just like Michelin tyres are claimed to be scientifically better at gripping the road. Nonsense. Any evidence of Earth curvature, that's the former geometric sphere edge horizon.
Nonsense.
Any evidence of axial rotation in that case?
Not of the Earth-based variety, but we do have 15-degree movement of the sun above us.
No axial rotation proof?
No, no axial, no, not of the Earth-based variety.
Before the live show started, we were discussing how a lot of globe believers don't actually know what their own claims are. As a result, we, on the Flat Earth side, spend a considerable amount of time detailing what the globe actually claims. And as a byproduct of us spending considerable time detailing what the globe actually claims, we then have to contend with idiots that don't understand that we're detailing their claim. And they feel it appropriate to tell us that our detailing of a globe claim, in this example, reference frames, is debunked. Now, I'm specifically referring to Simon Dan, and I quote, "You and your reference frames have been ruined," end quote, Simon Dan, with an example of a man not drifting. Now, this is a perfect example of a sphere Earth believer not actually understanding their own claim that Earth has two reference frames and demonstrates drift at 15 degrees an hour. That's a globe Earth claim that we have to detail, and can detail, very concisely. Only for an idiot like Simon Dan, who doesn't understand the globe Earth claim that we have drift and two reference frames, tells me that my rendition of that claim from the globe Earth is debunked. That's how stupid globe Earth believers are. I'm going to start highlighting it with a bit more venom. So anybody who's in my comments telling me that I should be looking at some Simon Dan challenge for $5 grand, number one, I find it abhorrent that you idiots who have no proof for a sphere Earth can have the gall to lay money on the table that never, ever, ever materialises. Number 2, this idiot laying money on a table that will never materialise has claimed Earth doesn't spin and has no reference frames to prove it. That's the level of stupidity you're dealing with, Simon Dan followers. Your mentor is an idiot and has literally debunked the claim Earth spins. So let it be known. We're going to be pointing this out with a bit more vigour and demanding a lot more respect from the people who come here to challenge what we point out about the sphere Earth and its lack of evidence.
So, Nathan, are you saying that he just believes we're a sphere in the middle of a vacuum, presupposing everything else that goes with that, but no longer spinning anymore?
Dan has asserted that the reference frames, not claimed by Flat Earth, we have no requirement for reference frames in any claim we make about anything. Those reference frames demonstrated to not be in occurrence with a man jumping up and down on a trampoline and not drifting, a demonstration of one reference frame. In spite of the fact the globe Earth claims there's 2 reference frames. 1, non-inertial spinning turning Earth. 2, inertial reference frame to see things drifting. 15 degrees an hour thereof, like footballs asserted by Neil deGrasse Tyson, or bullets as asserted by claims that snipers' handbooks tell them that Earth's going to turn underneath their bullet after it leaves the gun. Not that this is ever actually factored in, but this is a claim that globe Earth turns underneath stuff that isn't attached. That's 2 reference frames. Dan has turned around when I do exactly what I've just done and detail the globe Earth claim and told me my reference frames are ruined. So stupid he doesn't even realise that I'm giving a rendition of the globe Earth claim that we have 15 degrees an hour drift with 2 reference frames. Not my claim. Doesn't require debunking by anybody but Flat Earth. But Dan will come along with his globe Earth belief and tell me that the globe Earth claim we have reference frames is ruined. That's how stupid they are.
Yeah. When they can't produce it in reality, they have to argue against it, but then it's their main argument that they held up until they can't produce it in reality, then they argue against themselves.
Yep, they spend a significant amount of time arguing against their own claims that they don't understand. Well, we obviously don't see anything drifting away from us at 15 degrees an hour, so why would we expect to see it, Flat Earther? Well, I wouldn't, but you would at 15 degrees an hour. Well, your reference frames that you're detailing with 15 degrees an hour drift, they're debunked. They're not my reference frames, you complete idiot.
I had a look into this $5,000 claim last night just to see what this claim actually was. And do you know what? Have you looked into it? Has anyone actually looked at it?
Yes, I listened very closely to the claim being made, and it required an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy based on a begging the question fallacy of a sphere Earth with hemispheres to make this nonsensical claim that was being asserted. It wasn't debunked by Spurs, but there we go.
So his first one was, show me any object of at least, I think he said 500 feet tall, at 50 miles away. I was shocked because even on a sphere or flat, you couldn't see something that small that far away because it falls within the Rayleigh criterion, unless you had like the lens of the size of a satellite dish, like Jodrell Bank or something, because the Rayleigh criterion would mean that it is too small to resolve at that distance because it's too small. And I'm like, so even on both models, with the Rayleigh criterion application, you would never be able to resolve it anyway. But that's not going to prove whether it's the shape of the Earth or not, because it's too small to see. It's like, that's like me asking for, well, actually, it's kind of the opposite of me asking for evidence of measured Earth curvature, because you can't see it on either model, Dan. So you're asking for the impossible. Hello?
Is that what he's asking for?
Yeah. He wanted something that was at least 500 feet tall, or no more than, I think he said no more than 500 feet tall, from 50 miles away. It was his first requisition. And I'm like, that's going to fall within the Rayleigh criterion, you Burke. Because anything that comes up like that, I just think Blackpool Tower 30 miles away. Is that further or closer? It's further. Is it taller or smaller? It's smaller. Therefore, it's never going to work because it's too small to resolve on either model. So it's like you're asking for something that's never working on either model as proof of something for your model. It's like it's not going to work on either model, you idiot.
Sorry, Chewbacca wanted to say something. Go ahead, Chewbacca.
I want to see our model, please. As a matter of fact, let me see their model too.
How old is that video?
He was talking to you.
Oh, there it is.
He was talking to you.
Oh, sorry, was that a question to me?
He was, yeah. Clearly.
What was the question? I thought it was a statement. What was the question?
You keep saying our model. I thought we didn't have a model.
No, I know that.
We have a model, so I want to see it.
No, I understand that. I know it's a slip of the tongue. Right, so this is what he's asking for: a photograph of a target that is 50 miles away or more. The camera must be no more than 6 feet above sea level, and the target of the photograph should be no more than 100 feet in elevation. So he's asking for a target of no more than 100 feet from 50 miles away. Well, that falls well within the Rayleigh criterion on both models. So what do you think that proves, you Burke?
Rayleigh criterion isn't factored into their model. What are you talking about? Don't you remember the double dip?
Rayleigh criterion, what?
Remember back in the days when we debated Isle of Man and we first figured out that they hadn't got perspective in their model? That would be Rayleigh criterion. Fraction limit isn't part of their model, is it?
You have to make all that noise right now.
Yeah, I'm producing a show.
Honestly, she started organising the crisp draw the other day. The noisiest thing you could possibly do. She decided to start organising crisps.
Yeah, I've got the same problem with my wife. So yesterday I'm like, can I have 30 seconds just to record this? And she, in her hand, she's got 3 bags of crisps. One for her, one for each of the kids. I'm like, she hands them out and it's like, oh God, why do you want silence now? I'm like, well, I'm definitely not going to get it now, am I? With crisps rustling.
And I've totally lost what I was going to say now.
Just let the chips fall where they lay.
You were waiting for a fun
I was going to
moment.
say, you mean chips?
We were talking about models. Models. You've been asked about models.
Yeah, the angle of it was the angle of attack, wasn't it? Like you got to work out the angular size of an object that is 100 feet tall from 50 miles away when you're basically parallel to the water surface at no higher than whatever he said. That falls well within that angle, the limitation of the angular resolution. So ultimately, that doesn't prove anything for either model. So his request is neither possible nor does it prove anything on either model that he's trying to get $5,000 for. You're asking for the impossible on either model, so why does it prove one over the other? It doesn't.
Right, and I pointed out that when we got to that stage in the Isle of Man discussion, you were basically asking them to show the double dip, the effect of both the Rayleigh criterion being factored in and their Earth curve edge horizon with a dip beyond it. So they don't do the double dip, Anthony? Clearly, he's got issues. I'll stop this conversation with Anthony.
So this bet seems
It sounds like the dog
Yeah.
just threw the paperwork off the table or something.
Well, since we're
No,
talking about
he was trying to go somewhere and I grabbed him by his tail to stop him while I picked him up and he just had a hissy fit.
Okay, let's try that once more.
He's okay, I haven't killed him.
Let's try once more. Do you remember when you asserted, prior to us realising that the Rayleigh criterion is Earth curvature, the dip measurement, the hidden value is essentially the same as the Rayleigh criterion when you calculate it? They've just taken that maths and called it Earth curve. But prior to us realising that, get to the point, I'll try once more. You had asked them to assert the double dip, and you had a diagram that showed mountains over a curve in orthographic view, but them getting smaller as well. And saying, well, you need to factor the perspective into your mathematics because it's getting smaller as well as your assertion that it's going over Earth curvature, right? Prior to us realising they'd just hijacked perspective. So at the time, we were calling the calculator the begging the question perspective omitting Earth curve calculator. Well, QE eventually came along and said, was it QE? It started off with Good Times for All, and then QE put the two together and said, no, you need to change the title of the calculator to Perspective Hijacking from Perspective Omitting, because it hasn't omitted perspective. It's not like it's just been left out. They've literally taken the effects of perspective and called them Earth curve.
Yeah, I'm just getting that picture that you're on about. So it would be this one. Do you want a screen share?
It's on.
So obviously this is one of the pictures. The further away an object gets, the smaller it gets. So it reduces in apparent size. Now, what they've done on their model is, let's bring this one over. Oops, not that. That. They have, let's make it a bit bigger. On their model, because an object gets smaller as it goes further away, it must drop as well. So it is, as Nathan says, it is a double dip. It's required that it gets smaller and drops below the curve, not just gets smaller. And they claim that the getting smaller is it actually dropping below the curve because there's something called the angle of, the limitation of angular resolution that stops you from seeing something that gets too small in angle, because it basically goes into this thing called the Aries circle of diffusion or circle of confusion, where it basically you can't resolve it anymore. And they call that obstruction Earth curve. And it's not, it's an optical effect. This is how we got onto the horizon stuff, wasn't it? It led onto there eventually. So they have basically hijacked perspective. And they've called that removal of the ability to see far with regards to the lower parts of the beach, as it were. They've called that essentially curve, and it's actually obstruction caused by the angle narrowing, and they're not demonstrating the curve in addition to perspective. So it's all to do with hijacking, something that we've had to learn. It's our own fault for not knowing it, but now we do know it, we sing it.
Right. I mean, it's a nonsensical request from what I can glean, but it doesn't have any base that says at the end of that request you're going to prove that the Earth's a sphere or disprove that it's flat by this request not being fulfilled. However, I can make similar requests. I don't need to put a bet attached to it, but whatever amount you like to show me a physical, geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curvature, formerly blocking boats and buildings. Show me that. You can have any amount you like.
Yeah, I mean, they should be able to show you that without any kind of financial incentive, because it's supposed to be the world we live in, and they've got all the clients with them, right?
Precisely. It's marked with an X, labelled horizon in their Earth curve mathematics, and was claimed to block boats and buildings at a physical feet and inches value. That they could say, here you go, this is how much the physical geometric sphere edge horizon has blocked this boat in the distance. Well, that's a physical Earth curve edge that was very much claimed and is marked with an X in Earth curve calculations as the horizon. So your horizon's physical geometric. And what do they cry after the black swan? We wouldn't expect to see Earth curve. We wouldn't expect this to be in any other position other than what it says in the maths. So Earth curve, physical horizon that used to block stuff, doesn't exist beyond the maths. That's the only place you get a physical horizon, because we don't have a physical horizon. We only have one horizon, and it's apparent, non-physical. Your horizon, if you're a globe believer, is geometric and physical and claim to block stuff.
Well, that's why the black swan is so devastating, because it takes their begging the question and starts off with a modus tollens. If the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959, that geometric horizon that should block the bottoms of boats and buildings has to be no more than 1.22 miles from a 1-foot observer height. And since the math doesn't work in reality, then it's all been a calculation on a sphere that never existed, that we don't live on.
Exactly. If the distance to horizon is beyond 1.22 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, then we do not have a geometric horizon, and you cannot draw a tangent to it, and you cannot perform globe Earth mathematics, and you cannot assert that the horizon is physical, blocking boats and buildings with the maths, labelling the horizon with an X at the tangent point that you can no longer derive. So the entire thing collapses in upon itself. The globe Earth is dead. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No evidence. But like
Nothing.
Arwen says, it's over there.
He didn't say that.
No, I said like Arwen says, it's over there, but we don't know the distance to it.
That means Arwen didn't say it, Nathan, but in the past he has said it, so he's referencing it from the past. Doesn't mean he
Right.
actually said it.
Well, there's something over there. Visible.
What's where? What's where now? Have we got a distance to whatever this is? Is it the sun?
No, we got a sort of apparent direction.
Apparent direction, not actual direction, you mean?
Well, it's an actual direction. It's just that when you literally go in that direction, it may not end up to be exactly in that direction or of the original vantage point.
I see.
Oh.
So I'm kind of asking for the impossible when I say distance to the sun, then. The distance to an intangible object's never going to be acquired.
Right, and I'm also pretty sure that distances are not bent.
Well, it's still a good question because they're the ones claiming to know the distance.
Any evidence of the R
Yes.
value, which is where their distance to the sun is actually based?
Yeah, I was just going to say, is there a presupposition for their distance? Isn't it the R value?
Yeah, because if you're looking out at a lighthouse that's X amount of miles away, in Dan's case, 50 miles away, you'd have to ascribe a curved arc to that, not a straight line. So it would actually be further away than what the straight line of sight would be, because that's a curved line on the model. So that would essentially mean that you're looking over a circumference line. Therefore, it's not actually. So that would mean that every single distance that they've ever considered ever is always wrong, because it's a straight line of sight that we see, but they say it's a curved line of sight, really. So they're going to have to calculate a circumference, not a chord, every time.
That's
Or a
incorrect.
tangent.
It's semi-incorrect. Yes, they do say that. So correct. Yes, that is what they say. However, their model of a sphere Earth is a geometric model and does require a straight line to the tangent point horizon physical that they had called Earth curve. That's required. It's part of the geometry. The tangent, that's a straight line, is required to do geometry. They don't have one. It's bent. Globe Earth dead. End of geometry. End of assertion that we've got physical horizons. We don't.
So where do we go from here then, Nathan? Because they say that we're scared to come out of our echo chamber, but the reality is they don't have any evidence unless they group together in packs of wolves and hunt as a feeding frenzy group, like a pack of piranhas. That's the only way. And they say the same thing about us. But at the end of the day, if there's an objective truth, and the objective truth is that the horizon must be geometric on their model, even when it's subject to refraction, it still needs to have a geometric base to it, and it doesn't have one, because you could never ascertain whether it is one or not. Where do we go from here?
That's the end. That's the end. That is the end of the debate. Their assertion is we have a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon known as Earth curve, blocking boats and buildings at a physical geometric feet and inches value to attribute to the things that are blocked by its physical nature. Earth curve is claimed to block things. Earth curve is claimed to be the horizon. The horizon is not a physical Earth curve edge. We only have one horizon and it's not geometric. Their model requires it to be geometric and it is not. That is simply the end of the discussion. We do not live on a sphere.
Should we pack up and go home?
Did the Western world all find that out? Have they all subscribed? Subscribe if you haven't already and share the show. Because when someone like Anthony says, well, will you pack up? Well, when I've got 5 million subscribers and the entire world's talking about how the Nathan Oakley 1980 channel has demonstrably proven by way of the Black Swan that we do not have a sphere beneath our feet, then yeah, it would be time to pack up and go home. Maybe I'd make videos about hi-fi. But until that point, the majority of the Western world still are under this misapprehension that they've got a sphere beneath their feet, Anthony. So until that day, yeah, I just point out that the argument has been settled and just keep pointing that out. With people potentially, because the doors are open, right? The Discord server's not full. You could come in now if you were watching this live, and currently we are live. Obviously, at some point we're going to be currently obviously live, but when you're watching this after the fact, I'm not. But right here, right now, as I'm saying these things, you could join and say you're wrong. No, you've only got one picture of the black swan. That's all you need. You only need one black swan to show that not all swans are white. We only need one black swan non-geometric horizon to demonstrate that the horizon's not geometric. And that is precisely what we are told by our opponents. We wouldn't expect to see geometry. That is a quote from Planner Walk. The geometric horizon only exists in the maths. That's a quote from the Rumpus. We wouldn't expect to see geometry. That's a quote from AB Science. Yeah? We don't have a geometric horizon. That's what Earth curve is. So it's the end of the argument. Their rebuttal pushes their argument further into obscurity and nonsense. Wonderful. That's the end. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Nope.
Nah.
Volcanoes are supposed to be some kind of a connection to it, yet this has never actually even been confirmed through any empirical evidence.
Well, that's not claimed either. Volcanoes are due to the claim of tectonic activity at the Ring of Fire where all the plates are connected, and therefore you've got all the friction generating the magma underneath in a little pocket. But it isn't in any way asserted to be connected to the self-perpetuating molten iron core. That's just that's a misapprehension that some people have, and is just folly. That's not going to be claimed or documented as being claimed unless it's by a complete numpty.
So you're saying that the core is completely cut off from any other lava activities?
No, there is. Number one, there is no core.
Stop spoiling it, then. Damn it.
Number one, there is no core. That is an assumption with a just so story that's so whimsical it's wonderful about Thea smashing into Earth at a glancing blow, depositing its molten iron core so that the timeline can make sense with Earth not having its core already cooled down. There is no core. It's just a story they made up. Is there just so story connected to their claim that we have tectonic activity creating volcanic pockets? Well, no, that's not connected to either. And as far as I can ascertain, the tectonic claim is also just another just so story.
But how do you explain the Ring of Fire then?
Sorry, do I need to make up a just so story to point out that it's a just so story?
Yeah. Why are the Southern Star rotations, Nathan? Why don't you explain that to me? Sorry.
Owen's in a good mood today, I can tell. He was taking a lot of heat in my Uncut and After Show chat yesterday. A few people might think that if I'm not chatting, I'm not there. I am. Just watch what's going on, what's happening, especially if there's mods that can mod for me. I'll sit and watch what's unfolding. And Owen was getting so much crap, and he just took it all in his stride. It was ace. Water off a duck's back for us now, right, Arwin? People who come to abuse us, especially in our own chat feeds. It's like water off a duck's back now to you and I, and Anthony for that matter, and probably a lot of the people on the panel.
Yeah, you get used to it. It's also funny because it's almost like a rock that they throw, and at some point you just recognize exactly what they're throwing at you. Like, you understand better what they are trying to achieve than they do themselves. So it is kind of like water off a duck's back.
Yeah, I see the angry face holding the rock, going, take this rock! I go, yeah, you're so angry about this, aren't you?
So are you saying they're throwing Michelle Thaler's cousin?
Missed the pun.
Yeah, our cousins. She says every time you see a rock, they're our cousins. Yeah, she's throwing. These rocks are being thrown. They are our cousins, apparently.
Wow, we're getting really mixed up in the metaphors now, aren't we? No,
it's not a metaphor. She does say it. She honestly says that when you next time you see a rock, that's one of your cousins. It's a bit like
why she says that.
We're all stardust.
Yeah,
Tony,
okay, that needs covering then.
Without sin throws
spans,
the first cousin.
That spans from a just so story about how the elements, the rocks in this instance, have been formed in the first instance. So, the heart of exploding stars, That's part of that Just So story. No? Not familiar?
Yeah, Thea
Oh,
crashing into Earth.
No. Different story.
Hang on.
Different
All
story.
I know is, I'm sorry.
So
I
we've
was
got a
gonna
different
say,
story, not Thea smashing into Earth. It's a different story. We've got the implosion supernovas. So that would be the equivalent of our sun, but in a different region. Imploding. So it lives fast, burns bright, dies young, implodes, and then upon those layers collapsing in on themselves, they're forming different elements as they do so. And then when it finally goes supernova and explodes, it sends all of that material, now formed material, the building blocks of all of what we have to create something from nothing in their rhetoric, that's been dispersed throughout the universe in their rhetoric, to then eventually coalesce through gravitational accretion into something like the rock we stand on, and then through something from nothing, nature creating life, those elements will form us, along with the rocks. So in some way, they are our distant cousins in that rhetoric because we made it up ourselves. There you go.
okay, well, I was going to say, when I throw rocks, I'm usually not cousin.
But do you all understand how they say the elemental particles that you're going to build life with and rocks with are related in this story? Do we understand that now? Yes, Nathan, you're such a wonderful teacher. Oh, I try. I try and keep it concise. No? Rocks are cousins? Is everybody in? Why am I bothering?
Well, it all depends. It could be relative.
Do we understand the heliocentric nonsense? That's all I'm trying to find out.
Two good
I'd like
puns.
to stick to he who is without sin throws the first cousin.
I love
That's great.
I like that.
I like that a lot. Let he who's without sin throw the first cousin.
Right. It's safe to say that the dwarves don't like it too much.
and hold them down until they cry uncle.
If you throw your first cousin under a bus, does that mean you've chucked a rock under a bus?
Just like to say, for the YouTube algorithm, we are not inciting any violence against dwarves. Just so that's on the record.
But you can think that we're inciting violence against dwarfs, and that's enough.
No. Stop trying to take Nathan's channel down, Tony.
I'm
think
just
he is,
emphasising how silly it is.
I don't think he is. I'd stop him if I thought that was the case as well. I don't think he's vindictive, Alwyn. Bloody hell.
No, I'm not.
Look
Just
at
making how
Arwen.
silly it is.
Look at Arwen chiding Sleeping Warrior. He's throwing cousins around.
I know.
Have you ever-
And he's so aggressive.
Have you ever heard the crabs in a bucket analogy? JLB occasionally uses it.
I might have done. Go on.
So the crabs in a bucket analogy is that all of the crabs are trying to get out of the bucket, but in doing so, they're all pulling each other back down to try and stop anybody getting out of the bucket. So it stops them from achieving, and any of them achieving their aim. So they're all fighting against each other to try and get out of the bucket, right? Well, that's the equivalent of people all clawing to bring the people around them down. By contrast, so when I was trying to explain that I'd not made a video about GR research because I didn't want to get between him and his earnings. That's not my place to do. It's the opposite of that. Yeah? So the people who, for instance, would attack my channel to say, let's see if I can deprive this man of his earnings, or George Netanyahu going after Brian, same principle. Right? Crabs in a bucket.
Yeah, I thought you gave that guy sound advice, actually.
Right. It's really silly too, because the crabs in the bucket, like, why they don't allow each other to climb through is because they're not giving the others the room to actually try to get out. They want to climb on the other, and as the other is trying to climb on you, and then nobody's gonna be the foundation.
Exactly.
It's very silly.
Exactly.
Very silly behavior.
That's why they end up on a dinner plate.
Any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Impossible.
I think this is probably the best argument that we've got. It's a really good example of one of our best arguments where they just whistle past it as though it's not an issue. No matter how many times that you point out to them that, like, yeah, the gradient's an issue, we agree that there is one, but like the issue is that how did we have the gradient in the first place? They whistle past that, and some of them will cite gravity to be the explanation, and obviously we all know how that goes down, pardon the pun, but ultimately they ignore the fact that we have the gradients in the real world. And they have no explanation for it because they can't demonstrate it, even though we're in a gradient, even though we're in a gravitational field in their model. It should be the case that the gravitational field that we're supposed to be in should allow them to demonstrate how gas pressure basically pools at the bottom of a container or anything, and it doesn't do it. It always disperses, changes the rates a little bit based on how heavy the gas is, but ultimately it'll still disperse into the medium. And they ignore that missing evidence. It's like they're just happy to accept that they've got it, and they don't want to be questioned about why they've got it. They're just happy to accept that they have got it. So they're happy to affirm the consequence and completely miss the cause of it in the first place. It's outrageous.
Well, they have to defend the presupposition that they live on a sphere that's rotating. Then they say it's not rotating. Then they got to defend the sphere having air, atmos, and they add the word sphere. And then they have to somehow make up something that keeps it on it next to a vacuum of space. So because the presupposition is wrong, all of their answers fall apart.
And then it just gets worse and worse and worse, because what they then do is they completely ignore it, and then rather than address it, they move away from that point and say things like satellites or, you know, whatever red herring argument they want to introduce to try and distract you away from pinning them down on it, because they don't want to get pinned down on it. They want to accept that the gradient just exists, yet it can't be demonstrated, and that's kind of the point.
So, Nathan, you don't understand then that geometry can deal with curves. You think geometry is only about straight lines then, is that correct?
No, I said you
Tell
need
me
a
what I don't
tangent.
understand, eh?
I said you need a tangent.
No, you claim that geometry doesn't deal with curves. Are you going to
I
stand
said
by
you need
that
a
statement?
tangent. I didn't say geometry doesn't deal with curves. I said you need a tangent.
You did. You said you can't...
So you're going to decide to major on a minor, like you did with Adam the other day. So you require a tangent to a physical geometric sphere edge horizon. And a tangent's a straight line. Now, based on the black swan, we're being told that that line to the horizon's bent, therefore not a straight tangent.
Correct.
Yep. Bye-bye globe model. No tangent, no geometry. You're not going to be drawing out tangents if they're bent, because tangents are straight.
The tangent line is straight, but it can...
Well, you haven't got one anymore. It's bent. So your globe model's dead. Because it requires a tangent, and your line to the horizon based on the black swan is bent, not straight.
If you knew any geometry...
So you're going to add on me? You need a tangent for a globe Earth geometrical model. And your line, in reality, is not straight, therefore is not a tangent. And you need one. You need a straight line to a tangent point. It's never going to be bent, because that's not what tangents are.
Curves can meet...
Don't care. You're going to tell me how two curves can meet at a tangent point? You're going to try that old chestnut on me? Yeah, two curves, two intersecting circles can meet at a tangent point. But a tangent's still a straight line. That old chestnut's not going to get by me either.
Just try it, Nathan.
Just try describing two circles meeting at one tangent point, right?
Two circles.
So I was way ahead of him. So he's going to now use two circles meeting at one tangent point to lead me down the path that two curves can meet a tangent. Yeah, if you had two spheres butted up against each other, but we're only describing one sphere when we use your reification of a globe Earth, with a straight tangent to a horizon.
No, we're not talking about that. We're saying a curve.
Are we not? We're not talking about a straight line to a horizon when we describe a tangent?
Correct.
We're not describing a tangent when we draw a line in geometry to a horizon. Then we're not doing geometry anymore. That was my original point that you said I got wrong.
No, you said...
No, yeah. If we're not drawing straight lines to tangent points, we're not doing this geometry.
Don't need to.
Don't need to do Earth curve geometry. You're damn right we don't, because Earth's not a sphere.
Curves can touch circles, spheres at a tangent.
And have we got Earth as one sphere and another equivalent sphere in this example touching it?
You can have a curve.
I can have, or is Earth two spheres butted up to each other at a tangent point?
That demonstrates the principle.
You're just ignoring me because you're a coward. His example is two spheres butted up to each other, meeting at one single tangent point, not equivalent to the geometry of Earth sphere edge horizons that need a straight line to a horizon point for it to be geometrically accurate. And you haven't got one. It's bent. Black Swan destroys your claim that we have Earth geometry. You need a tangent, that's a straight line, and you haven't got one. End of Earth curve geometry.
You just need to man up, Nathan. Stop.
Sorry, you can suck my balls as I tell you that your tangent needs to be straight.
Take this on the chin.
Take what on the chin? My straight line tangent being bent?
Take it on the chin.
On the tin chin?
You can take it on the chin.
On the tin chin? What? Your horizon is a tangent point in your geometry, and it needs a straight line to it for you to do geometry. The Black Swan is being defended by an assertion that the line is bent. So you can't do this geometry, you haven't got a tangent line.
I can see you could probably want to prevent me making my point. You don't want to let me finish my sentence, but I'm going to carry on as much as I can till you mute me.
And take it on the tin chin.
You're going to mute me.
You can take it on the tin chin as I teabag you. Take my balls on your tin chin as I tell you again. Your horizon is geometric in your model. It requires a straight line drawing to it. That's called a tangent, and you haven't got one anymore.
So you've got to stop me making the point because you're scared of it.
Take it on the tin chin. You haven't got a straight line tangent anymore. You tell us how the geometric horizon only exists in the maths. Why? Because you haven't got a straight line to it in reality. So you haven't got a tangent line. Maybe you'd like to use your little example where you've got two circles meeting at a tangent point. So curves can meet tangent points, right?
Sense to what I'm saying because you're scared of it.
Oh, right, I'm scared to tell you that your example with two circles butted up to each other to make your point that curves can meet tangents isn't an equivalent when you've only got one circle in your geometric model that requires a straight line to a physical horizon that we've debunked. You can take those nuts on your tin chin, mate.
You're worried that it will invalidate your whole argument because you won't let me make it.
You've already made it. Two circles butted up to each other means you've got one of those circles being a curve meeting a tangent point. Total false equivalence, nothing to do with my argument that you need a straight line. So take it on the tin chin, my friend.
But you've got to cope with that.
Cope with what? Your example that doesn't make sense because Earth isn't a butted up sphere to another butted up sphere to make your example where curves meet tangents make any sense?
You don't want me to make my point, Nathan.
I've heard your point. Two circles means you've got curves meeting tangents. Well, we haven't got two circles. We haven't got one circle. Earth's not a sphere. The assertion that it is requires a straight line tangent to a physical, geometric, sphere edge horizon. And you personally have already told me that geometric, physical, sphere edge tangent point with a straight line to it only exists in your maths. It doesn't exist in reality. What doesn't exist in reality? Earth curve doesn't exist in reality. It only exists in the maths. And you'll be taking that on the chin, my friend.
Away from criticism and debate, even though...
Yeah, criticism and debate is all you can babble through me so you don't listen to my points. Get lost.
It's a GIF. It's the last one in Master B. It's perfect for this conversation.
Have a little look.
Have
Tell
at
us
it.
what it is while I'm bringing it up.
Well, it's a GIF of a tangent meeting at a point on a sphere and how they have to have a portable horizon that's the flat Earth to go anywhere on their presupposed globe.
Yes, indeedy do. So from an observation point on a claim to be sphere Earth, from an aspect that you will never see, that's side onto your own head, their geometry requires a straight line to their horizon, which is called a tangent point. Now, because they haven't got a straight line anymore, they're telling us how it's all refracted. Bendy crane refraction to the horizon, right, globeheads? Well, that means that you haven't got a tangent line anymore. And the justification from Rumpus, I was clear before he even made his argument what he'd be claiming. You can have a curved line meet a tangent. But that would require a second sphere. So if I've got two spheres meeting at this point, then you've got a curve meeting a tangent, right? Oh, right. Well, that's total false equivalence because we haven't got two spheres. We haven't even got one sphere because we haven't got a geometric horizon anymore. That would be a tangent point horizon, physical, with a straight line drawn to it. But because he hasn't got a straight line, he's going to tell us how if I draw another sphere next to it, I've got a curve meeting a tangent. Great argument, Rumpus. Shame I caught it before you even made it.
Yeah, I never understand that when it comes with two spheres.
Crap argument. Dead donkey on arrival.
They can't defend one. Now they're going to try and defend two?
It's a telling discussion because he's trying to justify having a curved line to the horizon. Now, justifying it with a second circle in this depiction doesn't mean that the tangent isn't straight anymore, but that's what we're discussing. The fact this straight line that they have in their geometry needs to be straight and is now bent. So he's going to say, well, if I put another circle in the frame, I've got another circle meeting that tangent point. Yeah, but your tangent's still straight, isn't it? But your globe Earth doesn't have that anymore. It's all refracted, right? The horizon's refracted, so you don't have a straight line of sight to it. So you can't perform this geometry for a sphere Earth with a physical horizon. That's dead. Goodbye. Your crappy second circle didn't save you, Rumpus.
Hey, Nathan, I'm not sure if you got the one I referenced. Are you looking at the one I labeled portable plane horizons at the end of Master B?
I think so. Got a
See
picture
the
of a
GIF,
moving
the
tangent on a
line?
sphere. Shout out to Retro Bill, who says, thanks to the panel for yet another great conversation. Really appreciate the support, Retro Bill. Thank you for the super chat. Yeah, that's what you're going to have now. Somebody clever dick like Rumpus coming along and saying, yeah, our tangent can be bent, but without actually saying it. What it actually says, you can have a curved line meet a tangent if I introduce a second circle, which I called before I even said it. Hello, Brian.
Hey Nathan, hey everyone, how are things?
Very well, very well. Same old, same old.
Yeah, two spheres meeting together. Unbelievable.
To justify why they haven't got a straight line tangent anymore. That's telling.
Love at first sight.
Yeah, it is very, very telling that that's what they're left with. If that, I don't see how that's proving a globe. No.
Wizardry at its finest. And if this wasn't Nathan's show, he would have just rammed it right in. The audience wouldn't have been clear on what he was doing, and that's exactly how we have the globe, because all they can do is trot out these tactics. It's very disgusting. It's disgusting.
Right, we point out there's no straight line to the horizon anymore for their geometry. Their rebuttal, not, oh, we have still got a straight line to assert that the horizon's physical. It's no, you can have a curved line meet a tangent. If I draw a second circle next to a straight line tangent that on our model's now bent and dead and destroyed the model. But I'll ignore that and just say, yeah, you can have another second circle meeting this first circle to give you a second curved tangent point where the straight line dissects both of them at the tangent point for both circles. So therefore the second circle's a curve meeting a tangent, isn't it? Therefore my tangent can be bent? No, your globe Earth geometry still needs a straight line tangent and you haven't got one. Where do we go from here, Anthony? Globe Earth's dead. Point it out to some funder who uses a false equivalence with other circles meeting tangent points. What do you do now other than accept the fact that they're never going to demonstrate that the Earth's a sphere and all they can do is weasel around the fact that we've demonstrably proven it isn't?
Well, Glenn Campbell had a song, Rhinestone Cowboy. One of the lyrics is, there be a load of compromising on the road to my horizon.
Flatten the curve. The end of COVID is on the horizon. Don't touch your face.
Nice cheeky comment.
least we got through the entirety of housekeeping questions today.
Yeah, I've got those slides up if you want to do it in the after show. They're in order.
How long does the presentation take? I'm more than happy to keep it along the live show open a little bit longer, just so at least once we've got one of your presentations on a live show.
I could get done in 10 minutes probably.
I think the audience would appreciate if we had an extra 10 minutes. So just so I know that I've actually got the right one. So that it starts with north-south, 22 degrees, right? And then I just have to hopefully flick through it in order.
No, we got it. It was something weird. Here we go. So the globe model is a presupposition of a sphere. Then all angles come from the center. So if you draw a circle on a piece of paper, that's a two-dimensional situation there. But if you put a dot in the middle, that would be the radius. And so you can draw two straight lines from the surface of that circle to the middle of that circle, which would be the radius for Earth, and you can form an angle because you need two straight lines to form an angle. It must have a vertex. The third part is sun rays must come in parallel, as you can see here. So let's describe this picture real quick. So here's the sun rays that are supposedly coming in parallel. That must happen, or it's dead. Then you got to take the measurements from the center in order to get an angle, because you can't get an angle from a curved surface. You need two straight lines. So that's the second part. And then you've got that person up there. And since the sun rays come in straight in their model, but not in reality, you have, what's the word? It's going to come up in the next slide, but I'll wait till there. Let's move on.
Curved
So
Earth.
now we've got curved Earth. Sun rays hit the Earth at angles. So their angles is because of the arc or shape of the curved Earth. Their angles is not anything else. Remember, they got to go to the center. And that 90-degree right there in the middle, that's the zenith. That's when the sun hotspot is over the Earth at a particular point, the highest point on that day. So that's called the GP, geographical position. Next slide. So here we go. Those two parallel lines, that would be representative of the sun rays. And then that line going through it would be the zenith position to the center of the Earth. And of course, you get the same angle. So this is how they trick you. Next slide. Corresponding angles was the word I was looking for. So you can see they even got a circle here, and you can achieve corresponding angles, but you got to take the measurement from the center. So let's go back to how I started this. They have to presuppose a sphere. All angles have to be measured from the center, and the sun rays must come in parallel. But we have a problem. We don't measure anything from the center. We measure it from the surface of the presupposed sphere, which is an arc. So sextant will not ever, ever, ever work off a curved surface. But sextants do work because we don't live on a sphere with a curved surface. Next slide. As you can see here, we have GP1, GP2. So two different stars and their zenith position to Earth, where they're the highest point at that time. You take a reading. Wow, look at those straight lines. This cannot work on a globe Earth, because if you get GP1, that's equal altitude. Anywhere on that circle is the same angle for that star in GP1. That's a big part of that Earth. That has to be flat. GP2 works the same way. And yet, there's the guy at the top, the zenith of the observer. They've got to go to the center to create the angle, but it's a presupposition. Next. This is from the Navy. This is talking about dip correction. You got to take it to sea level. So no matter where you take the section reading on a ship, you got to get down to sea level to create the zero, the straight line zero, so you can form an angle. And it's pretty self-explanatory here. No other way. You can't do it on an arc or a curved surface. Next slide. I mentioned this earlier, the circle of equal altitude. Let's say that's the zenith position of the sun in the middle, as shown in that yellow line. You could be anywhere on the circle, and the circle could be 50 miles or 5,000 miles from that center GP. And every position from that circle has to be 50 degrees if you took it from that angle. And guess what has to happen? Two straight lines, not to the center of the Earth, but to the surface of a plane. That's the only way sextant works. Next slide. So here's a typical Muppet vision of theirs. So you've got the Earth from the center, the sun ray hits that, but if you're on the surface, the sun ray's supposed to hit that parallel. And if you're in an airplane, it's supposed to hit you at 30,000 feet parallel too. So in geometry, if you go to the center and you create two straight lines, all these angles will be corresponding. But is that how it works? We know it doesn't. Next slide. Let's say you're in the middle of the ocean. You take 3 readings of 3 stars. Where they cross all 3, that's where you are. And all those 3 readings need straight lines. Can't happen on a curve, as you can see here. Has to happen on a flat plane, or else you don't get the angle. Now, let's look at the sun, the next slide. So here's a little cartoon image of the sun. It's a spherical object. Light goes in all directions. No one's going to argue that. And yet, the very following slide says light comes in parallel. Is this true? Well, let's find out. Next slide, you're going to see a beautiful diverging rays of the sun, what we actually experience here. Not parallel rays. Next slide, beautiful, shining through the clouds in all directions. Not parallel, can't work on a sphere, has to be divergent. It works on a plane. Next slide. You can see some hot spots here. But there are a lot of angles. Well, the one that's directly under it would be the GP. The other ones are angles because it's angled to that, because the rays come in diverging, not parallel. Next slide. Long shot here, lots of clouds, and you can see that one ray coming straight down in the middle. The rest on the sides are going sideways because sun rays come in diverging, not parallel, destroys the globe model. The next one as well, sun rays are going in all directions, not parallel. And then the last one, if you look at the sun, you see it going in all directions. And here's an image of one, but there's many of these. To round it off, let's go to the real world where the sun is above a flat Earth. And when it's directly over you, it's your zenith 90-degree position at the highest point that day. And any sighting of it with a sextant, because you're on the plane, will give you the proper angle. I just destroyed Eratosthenes. No one measures from the center. The center is presupposed because they presuppose a sphere. And those angles that they get is from the center, but they're really shadows on the flat Earth. Ball game over. 2021, the year of the sextant.
With that, I'll say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's live show possible. If you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, as I say, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. Also, below this video, there is a link to get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on either premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Through the rays of the sun, and show them meeting somewhere in the sky if you can't see the sun. You know what I mean? You can draw a line straight back to the sun.
Then they'll say, well, I thought perspective worked. Well, if you look at train tracks, they look like they're diverging, but they're straight.
Yep.
Yeah, but still,
Yeah, that's
a nice
straight line on the ground.
correlation. But and also, we've never seen a light source not have divergence from the.
Yeah, but what they're doing there is they're pulling the wool over your eyes with that, or trying to pull the wool over the audience's eyes with that rubbish. That's a completely false equivalency. Because when you're looking at train tracks, you're looking at perspective. You're not looking at perspective when you're looking at the sun rays. That's not perspective.
Because it's vertical versus horizontal.
Exactly.
Right. Very good, very good.
Morning, fellas.
Hey, Chocolate, and hey,
Morning,
Adam, by the way.
Chocolate.
Hey, Chocolate.
Yo.
What's going on?
And
Listen,
Adam.
they're stooping to moss now. Moss on trees proves ball earth.
I'm glad none of this snuck into the live show. Thank God.
It definitely shows the type of character, though, I think that we're against. That guy Cypher. With chemo. Rather than the event, just the character we deal with. He was arrogant and down-putting and disrespectful. Then when he was shown to be completely wrong, he wouldn't pay the bet. The very bet that he put forward. That is the exact character we're against most of the time. I don't put Rumpus in that category exactly. Rumpus is a lot smarter than that. But majority of them, that is exactly the person we're dealing with.
Hold on, but the whole bet, he's putting you on a ball and telling you, okay, according to this ball.
But within that, what was most telling to me is how he was willing to lie to Weasel at every point. And if someone was going to try to be on his side and try to lie for him, he was going to accept that. Like, because he lied every 2 minutes. It kind of shifted a little bit just to
Who did
get
I
him out of
miss?
the bed. It was ridiculous.
What are we talking about?
Nothing
Moss.
really. Well, you missed Rumpus on the show.
Oh, were you talking about Rumpus this time? My bad. Sorry.
No. We were talking about what happened with chemo. I don't know if you've seen the Chocolate. There's a thing happened with chemo. QE posted it there last night. With chemo, where this guy started trying to force a bet upon him, and chemo accepted this bet over a stupid thing, and your man was completely wrong, and he wouldn't pay the bet. And it was him that was forcing the bet. He was being really arrogant. He was calling himself Doc. You see it when you go back I think it's in Master B or War Room. He's calling himself the Dr. Flat Earth Killer or some nonsense like that. And he just made some unbelievable idiot of himself. And he owes chemo £2,000
But they
pounds
never
or
pay
whatever.
anyway. They never
Yeah,
pay
but
anyway,
it's nonsense.
Brian.
Like, yeah, I know that, Neil. But the point is that this is the character. I'm pointing at the character. This is the exact character we deal with. Someone who's completely arrogant, while also being completely wrong. And then when they're shown to be wrong, they have zero humility. Zero humility.
So there was this is exactly how it went in my mind. So he went from all moss grows from the northern side of trees to most. He also jumped from you didn't accept the bet until someone interjected to straight up, I'm not paying you shit. Disgusting.
Yeah, well, he was claiming that moss only grows on the north side of trees everywhere in the world. That's what his claim got to that point. That's what his claim got to. It started off first in the eastern or northern Australia, or no, southern hemisphere or something like that. But then it became all of the world. It became the whole world. Moss only grows on the north, right?
There you go.
Was that the argument?
This is the guy. He was trying to. Yeah, this is it. He tried to.
Hang on. So put it the right way. If moss grows on the north, we live on a sphere.
Well, that was he didn't. He was that was basically his claim, that he was trying to have a thing with chemo, and he put in. It ended up being a 2,000 altogether, or £2,000 bet or dollar bet or whatever. But it doesn't matter what the money was. It doesn't matter if it's 2,000 or £2. It doesn't matter. What matters is that the guy was pushing this thing. He pushed the bet. And he was shown to be completely wrong. And only for SE stepped in, chemo was leaving him go on and on and on. I think chemo wanted the money to go up and up and up and up. And SE stepped in, said, no, you're wrong, blah, blah. And chemo was like, no, be quiet, SE. But it was too late at that stage. But a man was shown to be completely wrong, right?
So Brian.
And when it was, 1 second, Ted, I just want to. What he did, he was given a listen back to his own words, and then he said, no, I'm not paying you a penny, and he started abusing chemo. Go on, Ted, sorry.
So when the compass always points north, what does that prove?
That's the direction moss grows.
So wait a second.
said
He
perfectly.
actually said he's not paying.
Oh, without a doubt, he abused
So
chemo,
then
and he
that means
started.
he admitted that he was debunked.
No, he admitted he was wrong. He said, "I'm not paying you a penny," and he said that ye flat earthers never pay anyone any money. He started talking about some stupid nonsense from Wolfie 6020, and with a flat earther I never even heard of.
He never
There was
even
all
lost
this.
the bet.
Yeah, he totally lost the bet. He totally lost. He had to
I'm
admit he
saying
was
flat
wrong.
earthers never lost a bet because the earth is flat.
Hey, we didn't stay long enough for Brian's answer. That was the
Yeah.
best answer you could have given when I said, "Why does the compass point north?" And
Yeah.
what did you say?
Because that's the direction moss grows. That's
What
yeah.
man?
That
Classic.
guy is some idiot. But this is the thing. He was so arrogant. That's what I'm trying to point out. Like, no, don't latch on to the money or the bet. All right, that's chemo. That's personal with chemo. It's like what's important is that chemo was completely right. He was completely wrong. He pushed the bet. He was totally arrogant. And then when he was shown to be totally wrong, he had no humility. What do we see every day? How often do you see this? Nathan, how often do we see this here?
All the time. I've started pushing it. The reason they wouldn't honour a bet is because they have no respect for us. That's the bottom line.
That's correct.
Yeah.
They think we're idiots.
Why would you
What's
ever
the
go into a
relevance?
bet with a clown who calls himself Dr. Flat Earth Killer? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out what the relevance is.
It's
Here.
about exchanges you can have with ballers in gems of one place being where that happened. And I called Nemesis the flat. I was giving it to him because like everyone's saying that his arrogance was escalating, and I said to him, okay, you've won. The Earth's a globe. Well done. How's it feel? Do you want a trophy? Do you want a gold medal? And then it went into the Spurs thing. And yeah, and exactly like everyone's saying, he had no humility when he was cornered. So that's the relevance of it.
Yeah.
Classic globe fucking arrogant bullshit, really.
That's the
What's
problem.
up, Merle? How you been, brother?
The level of respect we receive is below the standard that anybody in any subject could expect. In any other arena, the 0 point that you would expect in terms of respect, what we receive is so much lower than that. It's untrue. To the point where I think this is going to come to a head eventually. People will start saying, no, the treatment of this particular group in our community, or in our society, I should say, is not acceptable. And that is genuinely the way I believe it. So all I do in a lot of the vitriol I deliver their way is deliver the exact same vitriol, the tactics and techniques I've learnt from them. So I've just run, okay, that's a weapon you'll use, I'll pick it up and use it. But only when justified. In other words, when somebody's showing no humility and respect, being disrespectful, and not conceding that they've got something wrong, at that point you throw all of their weapons back at them because they've been thrown at us, and apparently that's acceptable. Now at that point, they're like, oh, you're being a dick to me. It's like, oh, really? So the fact that we put up with this on a daily basis, even though we're right and you're wrong, is acceptable when it's directed at us, but suddenly we're all dicks when it's directed at you. No, apparently this is an acceptable standard. It's not, and I'm going to start highlighting that. No, the total lack of respect we receive is totally unwarranted.
I remember back in 2015 into 2016, we were constantly being called retards. There was a constant thing. And we weren't calling it back. We were trying to do the right thing at the time. But eventually, the more the flat out grew, and it was growing pretty fast back then, the more it grew, it got to a point where we started saying it back to them. Now, I didn't say it myself, but the words came out from other people. And straight away, they started complaining. Straight away, the very people who had spent the best part of a year or more calling us retards started complaining that they were being called that very same thing.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, same. Globetard was the term, I think.
Yeah, it became globe towered and flat towered. Yeah, it did. That's right. Yeah, globe towered came first, I think. But we were being called retards, and then we started calling them globe towereds, I think, and then they started calling us flat towereds. But the point is, we weren't calling them that. We were being called the retard for a good year before we ever retaliated.
Any actually neutral observer to this subject would say, yeah, the dissension into the flat Earth ranks from the globe side is abhorrent. But you could only view that if you were neutral, and most of society is on the globe sides. Then they've been indoctrinated to have a particular instinctual reaction to us as a subset of society. And that will always override any neutrality that could be attributed to somebody who could say, okay, this guy, he doesn't care either way, right? But he's looking at it neutrally and says, yeah, the treatment that is received by flat earthers, from globe earthers, is absolutely abhorrent.
Well, when they have fallacies and they can't defend their position with facts, they have to resort to this, because when you call out a fallacy, then they say, okay, how else can I argue my point without making something up out of, thin air? Well, they can't, because the whole model is a presupposition. It's not reality.
Well, what I would say is not to go against you, Tent. I understand exactly what you're saying, and I'm sure everyone in the audience and on the panel does. But what I would say about that is they don't have to resort to that. They have another option, and that is humility.
Well, I agree with you. I agree.
You're asking for a lot there.
Yeah, but I agree with Neil. They have that option, but they never take it.
I'm going to give you a perfect example.
It almost
now.
goes.
You know my son.
I don't know. Sorry, but about this humility, it really depends on the circumstances, because a lot of these people are just not used to really managing their own feelings all that much. It just happens, right?
did a good job.
We're in control because we have to be, to defend ourselves psychologically against all this. They don't really do that.
Well, whose responsibility is that?
It's a good point Owen's making. I want to hear Mel and Neil, because they both wanted to get points in 10th. But correct, we were discussing this earlier, right? We're both battle hardened, right? But when the tables turn and a few of their own stones come hurling back, they're complete pussies. Literally, I've had Mr. Sensible phoning the police on me. These guys are abject cowards. And the moment anything that slightly intimidates them comes their way, they shit their pants.
Well, I'm gonna call that being bitch made.
Well, you could compare it to they got a whip. They got a whip handed to them by society, and they're whipping people, creating excruciating pain, and they're enjoying it. And then somebody hits them, and they're crying like a baby. That's basically what it is.
Wait a second. Wait a second. What did you say, Nathan?
Which part?
You said somebody called the police on you?
Correct, Mr. Sensible. So I had to contact Anthony because he was stupid enough to tell me that he'd done it. So I contacted Anthony and said, how should I go about this to proactively deal with it if it is a problem? And Anthony gave me the directions to get in touch with the correct department and get in touch with the correct person and speak to them. I arranged to go and see them. I did. There was nothing to be dealt with. I wasn't going to be arrested. There was literally nothing. But this idiot, Mr. Sensible, had constantly, proactively contacted me to tell me that he'd done this.
What? For what?
Apparently, from what I can glean, he took aversion to me saying, who is this guy? And he's taken that and spun it into, he's trying to dox me, and then sent a report to the police with his claim that I'm trying to dox him. Now, when I spoke to them, they went, you haven't done anything wrong. No, you haven't tried to dox him. However, we have received a report. That's why we're now having this conversation. I'm like, right, okay. Good job I was proactive about it. Nevertheless.
Wow.
He called the police because you said, who is this guy?
In effect, yes.
Holy shit. Inquiring to somebody's identity on a superficial level, that is a major, major threat.
Yeah, and the reaction, like I say, by comparison to us, battled hardened, literally having people come on my own show in the first few years, doxing me on my own show. Well, that's stuff that I had to tolerate. The moment it comes back in their direction, they're on the phone to the Rozzers. It's pathetic. Not that the guy's been doxxed. The mere threat, perceived threat from him. Yeah, very telling. Now I appreciate just how threatened they feel by me. Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, it's absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense.
But do you think
The
he
Rozzers.
actually believed that?
I know
Or
he's
is it-
free. I know I am threatening to him. That's what I know now. Yeah, they fear me. Damn right, he should fear me because I'm absolutely ferocious. I'm going to rip apart his fear belief and leave you crying at the end.
We live in a society that doesn't want to be accountable for their actions. So yeah, he made the call. He did it. Who cares? He
Oh,
has
I'm
to
never
take
going to
ownership.
say who is this guy because I don't need to.
Oh, you just
That's
did it.
bad.
You just said it.
You know, it's a little bit like these people. Well, it's not just like it's actually exactly the same. These people have had a type of power, right? Learning this, what they were calling science, which is pseudoscience, and the high priests like Neil deGrasse Tyson and all the rest of them, they have loads of power. But if you look at it, it's a bit like a police, right? Where you have the police guy on the ground, and you have the sergeants, whatever else, and then you have the commissioner, which would be Neil deGrasse Tyson up at the top, blah, blah, blah. But as soon as you take, whether it be police or religious or whoever, as soon as you tell that person or let that person know that your supposed power means nothing to me, right? The power that you think you've been given means nothing to me. Then that person, it's all down to what personal power they have. And it seems that most of these people, I can't say all of them, but most of these people, when it comes to down to their own personal power, they don't have any. Because once you take away that power they perceive that they have been given and have, which is what we're doing, we're taking away this power they think they have. Or, you know, they have this supposed science knowledge, right? And we're showing that it's rubbish. And that's taking away the power. And suddenly the real people are coming out. You know? It's like, where's your personal character?
I thought you meant to make out.
Call the police.
Exactly. I thought you meant to make out. So I thought you meant the real people when you said that. I thought you meant rather than their personal character and their actual demeanour coming out from beneath the woodwork or veneer of whatever sock they're coming onto my comments, my chat feed to moan about me to the police about. When you said real people, I thought you meant the PhDs. In other words, the people that have dedicated a huge chunk of change to actually learning about this stuff so they can promote it and claim that they're somehow better than you, which is what they typically, I'm stereotyping, I'll stop. That, you know, they'll often throw up their credentials to justify why they're right, in spite of the fact that you're proving that they've got no valid hypotheses, what they're doing isn't science, they're just so stories, don't have any justification, they stand in violation of natural law, things of that sort of nature. And when you do that to a PhD, it's that not only I've got what you call power, that would be, you know, maybe social power to talk about something that someone else potentially doesn't know. Well, if it's a PhD, then that power is very real because they've got a living that's coming from it and a perceived grandiose nature because of their PhD or whatever it is that they're touting. Hopefully Kiwi will back me up on this, as it's him that calls out the PhDs more often than I.
Yeah, they got delusions of grandeur. They got their diploma up on the wall for everyone to see. And when you show them, demonstrate to them that they're an empty dipshit that doesn't know what science is, well, that kind of hurts their little pride. Right?
Yeah, it's very
Right.
similar, QE, to people who wear a uniform and a badge. They love that power.
Mhm. Yeah, they're pretender clowns. I can't believe that they called the police on you for who is this guy. Yeah, I'm still trying to process this. Isn't that sort of rhetorical?
Yeah, it's nuts. That's what we have to deal with here, right? That's what we deal with.
Mr. Insensible, I got potato chips that are smarter than you are. I mean, you're a stone cold dumbass. Why are you even out here when you should be picking up cans alongside of the road? Supervised. And now you're calling the police, right? Just stamp pretender clown fuckwit on your forehead and be done with it. Okay? Get your ass in here, by the way. Somebody go find him. Get him in here.
Somebody called the cops on you, Nathan?
Yeah. With that, I'm going to round out the show, though. So with that, I'll say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus Panels for making today's after show possible. Of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.